I have my game face on.
Okay. Welcome everybody to episode 55 of China Talk. You piece of shit. Alright, we're doing that one more time.
No, just go. Just do it.
Alright, just kidding. Fine. So, 55 of China Talk with Kelsey Moser, as you can tell here. Yeah, look at her. Oh my god, what happened? What happened, Kelsey?
A beautiful meme.
Oh, yeah.
China has transformed me in more ways than one.
You've made the transformation. It took years. It took years.
I saw this guy named Aaron, and I finally touched his finger, and I just became reborn. You know, Aaron Moser reformed.
I don't. It happened, man. That's you now, and now we just have to make do with what we have. It's just. Unless
I'm a better and more improved version of Karen Moser. Aaron Moser. Literally Aaron Moser.
Aaron Moser, god damn it. Alright, if you guys don't know him, you are too new. It's Hughbo Shim, the LCS stage coach, former LCS stage coach. But honestly, old time China Talk, I replaced him because he was donezo.
Yeah.
He had bigger, better things. Still does.
Bigger and better things.
And so now he's here.
We all had dreams once.
We all still do.
Mm.
And so now the dream is talking about the LPL playoffs that have been going on. So actually, I want to ask you.
Well, I mean, just before you do that,
yeah.
Thank you guys for having me. Mike and I were originally on this show back in the day, like last March or something like that, and it's good to be back with some familiar faces. But also, I mean, this is the first time I've ever been on with Emily on a show, and this is the first time that I've ever been on with Raz on a show. So it's really nice to be back. Thanks. Yeah.
Anytime.
Nice to have you.
All these new bloods.
Yeah, all these new bloods.
The new and the old.
The show is no longer sacred.
I remember when the show China Talk lacked any Asian people, just straight white people, and and one black guy talking about Chinese League of Legends. So
I like how the episode boxes are situated, because you're like the old bloods on the right and then the new bloods like on the left. So it's the clash.
Team, and then it's like Mike.
Yeah, let's continue.
But yeah, actually, I just wanted to ask you, Hughbo, how would you like coming back into this? Like, have you been watching like the games going into the playoffs?
Well, the thing is, so when I was still at G2 House, I wasn't watching as much LPL. I was kind of the thing that I thought that the Chinese played the game like kind of simply and messy, but it was ultimately like the right way. And I've always been, if you haven't been following me, a lot of people, one thing that separates me from other analysts and other coaches is that they talk about different styles and like different ways to play the game, or they share goal this way or share goal that way. And I've always been, there's a good way to play the game and there's a bad way to play the game. If you play the right way, then you're faker. If you play the wrong way, then you're fucking stupid, and you should aspire to the good way. So
those are the only two extremes.
Yeah,
there's nothing in between.
So only with
faker or fucking stupid.
So you shouldn't. I mean, I don't really believe in. I think in terms of like allotting gold to players, it should be according to which champions you have. So when I was in Gravity, I don't think I had much game knowledge. But when I went to Gamers 2 House, I thought my game knowledge was really good. So I didn't really find the need to watch Chinese Law anymore, and I thought that the games were really boring, and it was actually sometimes making my game knowledge worse. Like watching those games was making my game knowledge like significantly worse.
Yeah.
So I was only watching like tip-top LCK games, OGN games. But I think starting from like week 7, I watched the LPL promos when QG and UP got in, and then that was like the latter part of LSPL.
Yeah.
Then I started watching from like week 5 or week 6 because someone had told me about this really interesting team called QG, and none of us had expected them to be really good, right?
Yeah.
And it's like I was like, who's on the team? They said Avenger's on the team, and he's now known as TNT. And I was like, holy shit, this guy Avenger used to be so good. So ever since I started watching them, they become my new favorite team in the world, and that's kind of what keeps drawing me back into Chinese League of Legends. That and esports betting, which I have lost most of my money to. So God bless LPL.
God bless LPL.
God bless betting on Condi and Dade every single game. You know, never know what you're gonna
Oh
get.
god.
Tricks.
Never bet on M3. Oh my god, I actually lost. I think I got asked a bit by Draven, and then I went to an M3 game, and it was just like went downhill because you can't bet on that team.
Yeah,
So that's a great segue because OMG versus M3. I think this was actually really funny because it was as predictable as it could have been. M3 went up against OMG and got stomped.
I really wish World Elite could have made the
playoffs.
Beat M3 out. Because M3 fucking sucks. Like, it was pretty apparent how bad M3 was. Like, holy moly. Like, just Dade. I think Dade started carrying again, but, like, he started carrying too late. So his carry meter wasn't at the max and stuff like that. It's like a gradual process. So, I mean...
You can also, like, track where, like, as soon as they found the playoff format and they found out, because, like, M3 is, like, in third. And then as soon as the other actual good teams found out the playoff format, they, like, you can follow their, like, slow, like, through the standings. It's like everyone else's level of carrying just goes through the roof.
Oh,
they
God.
it's,
Was it even that slow? It was, like, the fastest decline.
It was like a plunge. The reason why I wanted World Elite was because, you know, M3 has, like, decent role players at, you know, like 3 or 4 positions, but World Elite has best jungler in China right now, Spirit, in my opinion, best jungler in China. Dude been playing out of his mind for like, you know, 20 straight weeks, God bless his soul, because, you know, the Lord knows he needs some mental support or some, you know, divine protection right now because he's just in the prison cell. But then when you look at OMG, right, you kind of identify their weaknesses, and their playstyle is fairly, again, I'm talking about playstyle, but then their play is fairly linear, and that kind of stems from where, you know, how they play out 2v1s and where Loveling goes in the early game. And if you can outjungle this guy Loveling, then you kind of, you know, crack the formula and you bring down the entire team, right? So when I see World Elite play, you know, even though Conan isn't that good, at least Conan, you know, like follows around Spirit in the jungle, like putting wards where Spirit pings to put them and stuff like that. So I would have liked to see an Elite jungler matchup. Would World Elite have won? Probably not, but then it still would have been nice to see them match up.
And so this really comes to the question that I wanted to ask: Did M3, like, would we had better games if it had been World Elite instead of M3?
I actually do think so. I thought it was horrible. Like, Uzi was getting first blood every single game. Looper might have had his worst set in like the LPL. Okay, maybe that's a stretch, but it was pretty bad. But yeah, I don't know. It's like I feel like honestly that M3 in terms of jungling wasn't really the problem. It was mostly Looper and like them fucking up on dives and stuff and not knowing how to play against them.
Yeah.
And I think that as a result, like OMG just had ridiculous advantages early on every single game because of it. Like in the first 2 games, it was just UZI getting first blood on scaling champions. I think he played Vayne both games, right? Or first 2 games, or
something like that. Everyone's been playing Vayne.
And then after that, M3 was just full tilt, and then they just went Caitlyn and like pushed mid like 2 towers in 16 minutes. So it was, I mean, like honestly, it was such a stomp that I can't really say that any other team being in M3's position would have been better or worse. But I do think Elite just stylistically would put up a better fight, because if you think about it, at least World Elite's like bottom laners, at least as like a laning team, are pretty good, like team fights aside. So it wouldn't just be UZI getting unstoppably far ahead in all 3 games, and then M3 just like having nothing they could do about it. I don't know. It was a horrible set. Honestly, it was just so bad.
All right, Emily, what do you think about that?
I also think it gave people false. I also think it gave people false perceptions of OG strength, because everybody's like, "Oh, this new roster is together. They found the answer, boys. We got it.
Finally did it.
Finally know how to." I mean, to be fair, they did play around UZI pretty well, but people were overreacting about how improved OMG were instead of looking at how faulty M3 were. So,
Emily, before you go on, I just want to. I looked up the champions that fucking Dade played, and I do want to talk about Dade. So he played Kassadin. He played Vladimir. He played Kassadin twice and Vladimir once, okay? Here's the thing about M3. When this Dade guy, right, gets Victor or Twisted Fate. Like remember, this guy was one of the original gods. You know, after Messiah, like OGN back in the day, he was the original god of Twisted Fate, right? Like the Flash, Ghost, Twisted Fate make plays all around the map. Okay, so when he gets like high pressure champions, then like everything goes good, you know, and then he's able to push the wave, and because God knows like fucking SMLZ and Looper aren't gonna be putting pressure on side lanes, right?
Yeah.
Literally, by definition, those two players cannot put pressures on side lanes because they're just too bad at the game to do it. So, you need to have pressure mid, right? You need to at least have some pressure mid so you can enable your jungler. And Connie's not bad, right? He's a good role player. Is he as good as we thought he would be? Probably not, because I think there were some people who, you know, Raz thought he would be pretty good.
Yeah, I still think he's like
he's good, but the problem is that his skill on Gragas versus every other champion is like such a huge disparity.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah.
And Lee Song, but then the thing is, if you don't have, let's say you ban out Victor and TF every game, right? Like I've never seen him play that many wave clearing. You know, it's like this guy doesn't play like, you know, Doenby or Yana or Doenby Morgana mid or something like that. So
yeah.
He has to play Caston every game, and you lose so much pressure as Caston. You literally have no pressure mid lane. So when you lose pressure in all three lanes, and then you try to force something with ganking jungler, then nothing ever works. Like really, literally nothing ever works, because you just pick another strong jungler, and there are so many strong junglers right now. Evelyn's strong, Elise strong, Rek'Sai strong, Gragas strong, Nunu strong, okay? So 5, and Echo strong. So 6 strong junglers that you can pick out of, right? And if you're able to pick one of those junglers and then find this guy once on the map, because all the lanes are so pushed in, you can predict which lanes he has to go to help. And therefore, Kandi's jungle pathing is like fucked from 5 minutes to, you know, for the rest of the game. So you can't make this guy play Caston if you want to win games, especially if your laners are so bad. If TF is banned and Victor is banned, you have to pick like, God, what else?
I was just about to ask you, like, what else would you
has
pick?
more wave clear than Caston and Vlad at level 1 through 4.
Even Ziggs, even his signature Ziggs pick would be fine. Yasuo wouldn't be terrible. Yasuo would actually not be that bad.
Azir would be still fine in that situation.
Azir would be fine.
Yeah.
Lulu mid, maybe. You know what I'm talking about. But you can't give a team like M3 Lulu mid. What is SMLZ gonna do with that kind of protection, right? He's just gonna go fake. He's just gonna die.
I think SMLZ will be fine. Like I think his mechanical skills are not. I think it's if you put him in a situation, I don't think he's gonna drop the ball.
Yeah, but,
I think his laning is just shit. I think that's it.
I know, but this is not gonna be carrying your team fights with Kog'Maw, okay? Like,
but versus Uzi, like Uzi is still like, if there's one thing that we can say about Uzi, he's a strong laner. Like he's just gonna, and that was like incredibly apparent in this setup. Like he just dumpstered him in lane.
It was bad.
I want to point out too that I don't exactly like. I want to give SMLZ the benefit of the doubt because I don't know how he is if he doesn't have like a shit support. Because for the longest time, I just think that Love CD is just, or Love CD, or even just Rua, was it?
Rua.
Yeah, Rua. Yeah. It's just like I don't know. Like so I want to give him the benefit of the doubt, but I'm not sure.
Love CD used to be on OMG or World Elite back in the day.
I have no idea. Actually,
those two teams.
What do you guys? We should look that up. I can't look that up.
It was on W. Wasn't he on W?
Maybe I'm gonna look it up now.
Okay, yeah,
but another thing is like I do think that while Dade's picks weren't the best, given the circumstance, I feel like that shouldn't have been the circumstance. Like if he wants to play a scaling AP mid in 3 different games, then he shouldn't just be like, oh god, I hope to god my top and bottom don't feed miserably before like the 10-minute mark, which is what happened. Like, and that's the sad thing is like Dade can't pick these mobile assassins. Like, well, okay, Vlad's not mobile, but he can't pick these like late game carries on this team because especially against OMG, SMLZ is not going to hold his own against EZI, and Looper will just never hold his own. So, or he'll make crucial mistakes in lane swaps, or he'll just be unable to handle dives, and then he just can't do anything. So, in its essence, you just have dead weight mid because he can't shove out and help anywhere. He's just stuck being shoved against his tower while his team's getting thrashed, and that's what happened in the series.
I mean, 3 times Dade looked to pick counterpick. He counterpicked Kassadin twice, and then he waited until last rotation to pick Vladimir, right?
He was on World Elite, but
yeah, he was on World Elite.
Yeah,
I remember
World Elite feature.
Okay, so like you can't if your team is suffering like this, you can't. That's not how you're supposed to operate. You just can't do that. At least play like, even Ari would have been really good I think Ari
Oh
would
yeah.
be perfectly
Yeah.
fine for someone for like a player like Dade, you know. Or like if you want to put like mad, even if you don't push the minion wave, like just go for mad pressure. Just play fucking like Zed or something like that. You
You
know,
know
Yeah, I
like,
was
what's
gonna say
Zed.
like even Zed wouldn't have been absolutely atrocious.
what's really funny is basically that we're talking about like a playstyle like Xie, essentially. Like that, like if you put Xie on that team, where he just like plays a champion that creates a lot of pressure mid lane, and that works for. No, I mean it doesn't work for World Elite, but works
I mean,
well enough.
I also do think that Hughbo's right in that TF would have been a really good pick for this series, but they banded away every time, and I think they didn't want to they banded away because they didn't want Cool to have it, but they also didn't want to take it first rotation because there's other higher priority champions. So
Yeah, I mean, I actually disagree with that. I think TF is the most. I think TF is second most OP champion right now, like with Victor being the first. Like TF is just like too strong. I think TF and Victor, maybe the caveats for TF are, it's hard to play against Braum and Sivir, but then like TF and Victor are just so strong. Like they create so much pressure around the map. There are no champions that like you just create space around the map with gravity field, or you can just port to different lanes and then create gang pressure. If you got TF, I'm sure they would have won the game. But
yeah, there are always weird situations in which you're literally in pick ban. You're like, what's stopping us from picking TF? Because literally, people will just pick TF blind. Doesn't matter which matchup. Well, because the assassin matchups are actually just like a good portion of assassins are dead. So
yeah,
unfortunate.
Unless you want to go like Fizz mid still.
Yeah. And so OMG moved on into the Vici matchup. I love that one too. I love that. Like.
That was a terrible.
They were riding high.
Frustrates me, like no.
And then everybody stopped stroking off Uzi and was like, "Oh, maybe North wasn't the problem."
The funny thing was I like went into Reddit. God bless Reddit. But I went into Reddit the day after the OMG
Vici or M3?
M3
set, and then on Reddit the front page it says Uzi beats entire M3 team. It's like walking in the brush and then walking you back to like bait the guys into that bottom lane brush during the level 1, and then everyone was like, oh my god, like the Super Saiyan guys and like really go ham during this during the next few weeks, and we're gonna see the real thing. And I hadn't even been watching OMG. Like I'd watched OMG a few times with North, and that was when like Cool played just TF every game, TF. But then And then I tuned into this Vici gaming series. I had just come back from the dentist, and my teeth was hurting. I was like, oh, I'm ready for some good League of Legends. And I see fucking Mata flash hooking into these guys, just destroying them one by one.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
That was unfortunate. So what went wrong, guys? What do you Emily? What do you think happened to OMG to really just create this nosedive?
What didn't happen to OMG? No, I mean I think the fact that my main problem with OMG is not I don't think Uzi is 1v9ing everyone. Everyone says I feel so many people are upset that because they won't get to see Uzi at Worlds and all this other stuff. I mean, if anything, OMG's level of play, it was Masters 3, which we just discussed, they're kind of a bad team.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of looking at OMG coming together, yes, there was a time when maybe this would have been possible, and I know their manager said no, we'll see you at Worlds, we're really optimistic, this time it's going to work, we're gonna get the roster together at the exact right time and then just make a run and make it into the regional qualifier, and they couldn't do it. And so I guess my question is did you really have to, and I'm sure I'm gonna get a lot of shit for this, but what was wrong with North?
Mm-hmm.
Aside from if you just want someone to straight up dumpster someone else in lane, because I will say Uzi is just such a fantastic laner, but in terms of working with the team, this roster had they said 4 scrims total or something together before they ended up like going into the playoffs. Like, and it was incredibly obvious. And then it's also obvious who they targeted. Like, people were shitting on Cool and then saying that Uzi is, you know, going to like he's stuck in elo hell or whatever, but like obviously they targeted Loveling, like so he couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
And that ended up working because this roster didn't have any time to gel together. So then what happens when you target Loveling? The entire OMG team falls apart. And it's just this team frustrates me so much. Like the whole transfer frustrates me. The fact that Team King like just like, I'm still sad about that. Like I'm still really sad. Like
I'm pretty sure Vici Gaming also like lane swapped twice throughout the set, and then they like if you lane swap and then pick a wave clearing mid, and then you have Sivir Maokai on your team, then the game's just over. Like what can you do against Sivir Maokai? It's it's just a Sivir comp. You run in them and you're donezo. Like what else do you do in that situation?
I mean,
but no,
yeah.
Seriously, like I don't want to comment. I'll let Drexen talk more about it because I'm not that comfortable with talking about OMG, but it was kind of clear that like just oh my god, even though people were winning lane, and then there was like a lot of some good early ganks, and then like some good early gold, and Loveling made a play here, and then Go made a play there, and then like I actually think this is like kind of a cop-out answer, but the ward coverage was really poor. Like, just it was not that great, and that might have been because of Sun's inexperience, and also just the team fighting was not the greatest, especially against Sivir composition. And then if you're gonna play, it just looked like OMG kind of looked to counterpick lanes and then dominate lanes, but after Vici Gaming started grouping, then Mata just like put wards there and then like sat on like a brush or sat on like a ledge outside of a brush where he knew a ward was and just hooked people and then looked for face checks and kills all the time, and then they just got 5 dragons, or they just scaled with dragons and won.
And so this like literally begs the question. Let's go with Jackson on this one. Like what? Okay, so they get into playoffs with the lineup of either, like, I guess regardless of the bot lane matchup, let's say they have either UZI or North. They go in. I'm pretty sure they qualify with North, and they have Xiang, and they change to Going. That's in the end. I feel like that's fine. What the fuck happened with San and like why is San playing support? Like, how do you, I mean, obviously, I can't expect you to answer that, but
yeah, I mean, like, honestly, we haven't seen him play with the team, but apparently he's been playing a lot of support in solo queue and practicing. But with that said, like, I don't know, there was just so much wrong with the OMG in the set, and I don't really think it's just based on San. And I will say that, yeah, there is the general opinion that Uzi is 1v9ing or something, but to be fair, I think people are oftentimes always forgetting the human elements of teams and relationships within the team, which has been cited as an issue before between Cool and UZI. I don't know the exact science behind it or if it's true or whatever, but truth be told, UZI did play the set really well. I actually feel like sometimes his mechanics were so good it looked like he was like botting or something. He had like a lot of really good time flashes.
Game 3 was really good.
It was actually insane. There was moments of brilliance and stuff like that, but at the same time, I mean, there is issues between the team members, and maybe not personality-wise, because we don't have the validity to say that, but in terms of how they play together. Like, when people were saying that Cool just ran away in one of the team fights with TF, but win that Dragon fight, I think it was in Game 4. Like, if you just watch the game as a bystander, I'd almost say, like, wow, okay, someone paid Cool to sabotage this game, because holy shit, that was terrible. But at the same time, like Emily said, they didn't really have time to gel together. If you look at the game, I don't think OMG's used to playing with carries that are, like, squeezing out every last auto and, just like putting out the exact amount of damage they can before they die. So I think in most situations, Cool would have, like in many other iterations of the team where they had San, or if they had North on the team, like they would have walked away and just like been like, okay, I concede. Where in this situation, I think that was what was called out, but UZI was still fighting, and he actually almost got like a double or triple kill there. And had Cool followed up, I do believe that they would have won that team fight, and that would have actually kept them in the series almost, because that team fight was horrible. But I don't think we could just place it on Cool. I think it was like a communication error, and I think I think the thought process was, okay, we're gonna concede this dragon or walk away from the dragon, but UZI still wanted to fight. It wasn't like Cool playing bad. It was, I mean, I do think that Cool sort of underperformed in the series, but I think it was mostly just that they weren't on the same page. And So yeah, I mean, I do think that that was more of a team issue rather than like an individual skill issue. And yes, Uzi did play really well. In fact, I think out of the 12 bans in the set, 11 of them were
Yeah.
against Lane.
Yeah.
Rise in game 2 was the only ban. Wait, did they even? Hang on. Yeah, they only banned Rise in game 3, and that was the game that OMG won. The game that OMG won was when bottom lane wasn't banned out every single time, like all bottom lane bans. And the thing was, is there were moments of brilliance. Like in game 3, it wasn't just UZI or whatever. Like Going had on point teleports and things were going well in the jungle and stuff like that. But the thing is like people were also calling out Loveling. But what the fuck could he do? They banned out all of UZI and San's like best duo lanes. And so they weren't as dominant in lane, like they were still doing very well. But then as the series progressed, like I feel like Loveling was progressively more more helpless in the jungle. And I think a lot of that is, I mean, you guys can say like, okay, they had bad vision control, but like I don't know what the fuck they were supposed to do, because the team would take an objective and then VG would go into Loveling's jungle and like light up the entire thing.
Yeah.
Like he couldn't even take his own buffs 10 minutes in without them knowing it's going on and then just contesting it. And that was the funny thing, is if OMG picked their forte, which is just winning lane in game 3 and just smashing every game, I think they would have been fine, but they weren't intelligent about it. They were stupid. And I think that showed in their
Yeah.
I think it showed in their drafts and their strategy and everything. It's like, okay, look,
No.
Vici Gaming is historically weak at team fights. They are, however, an intelligent team. Let's play super meta against them. Like I think they tunneled too well in playing correctly. But it's like, dude, you're fielding UZI. Just win lane and win game. It worked so well.
I don't know what
Well,
you're talking
and additionally, like I guess to piggyback on that point, like look at Vici, and like I do think this is the best that I've seen Vici play as a team, to be quite honest. And they have 2 new people on their team, but how does Vici operate? Well, Mata and Dandy basically just control the entire team, like they're their little puppets, so you don't have those miscommunication issues. Like I feel like if you're going onto that team, it's not like OMG where you have had so many internal issues among the actual like players themselves. And I'm not saying like such and such player hates each other, but just in-game communication is obviously a problem for that team. It's been a huge problem. That's why they've had so many roster changes. And if you get a team like Vici where you're hopping onto that team and you're Pung, and people are like, okay, you're gonna listen to Mata, and he's probably gonna say, all right, like, okay, that's how it works, and that's how they won. Like they're obviously all on the same page because they're just basically being controlled or being told what to do by someone on the team. And against OMG, that really works because OMG obviously has major issues doing that.
Hughbo?
World 6 jungling has gotten progressively better each week too, especially with the additions of Peng and Chuan. He's gotten much better. The funny thing about this is, like, I think Vici Gaming, you know, going off your point, Vici Gaming spends they do spend a lot of time, you know, helping out Dandy and making sure that he's usually in a good place in the game, which is something that, you know, some teams do and some teams don't. A lot of teams just feed the AD and don't spend much time, you know, ganking for top lane. I do want to say this though, like Jackson was saying something about like OMG playing 2 meta. Dude, there's nothing meta about Loveling Rengar game 4.
But that's what I mean, is I think the first 2 games they were trying too hard to play like a normal comp instead of just saying, okay, look, Vici sucks at playing from behind. When they're ahead, they control literally everything. So what do? If you do any basic level of research, you play for early game, which OMG is fucking good at. Like, that's their forte, so why didn't they do that? After game 3, I don't know what happened. They went full tilt. The Rengar pick, like, okay, they've already been having a problem with Loveling getting warded up and not being able to jungle, so what the fuck is Rengar gonna do if he can't farm in his own jungle? It's like, oh, they're like the best team, well, one of the best teams besides LGD at control in our region at controlling the jungle and objectives. So what should we do? Let's pick a champion that absolutely relies on getting that shit to do anything early game. Like, what the fuck? I don't understand. And then, so they were basically begging to get invaded and get crushed in game 4. Now, like, yeah, VG did definitely overperform, and I think especially in the team fight department, they played better than I've ever seen, which is remarkable because they've only been using that composition for 3 weeks on the stage.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of it was just preventable issues that could have been fixed before the game for OMG, and then on top of that, just people, just issues that people I think haven't been seeing behind closed doors, which is the communication and cooperation between teammates rather than how well they did against their counterparts, which I don't think was the issue whatsoever. So I don't know. It was silly.
Alright, so OMG ends up getting smashed in this series. Like, it feels like...
Hey, they had the one game.
Yeah, they did get that one game. Yeah, that's all that matters.
That one game that they were like,
just, like,
let's make a logical choice against Vici.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know.
It's unfortunate. And so Vici ends up taking the series, and here's the best part. They go up against... Tonight they go up... Oh, last night I suppose. They went up against LGD. Now, this, of course, is a seeding match. It ends up... So whoever wins this series goes up against Snake. Whoever loses this series goes up against Invictus Gaming. And based on whoever wins each of those series, they go up, well, I guess based on the seeding that they had in the season, they go up against either Xiaogu or EDG.
Yeah.
And so, how did Vici do against LGD? That's
really
the
badly.
It's Hughbo. What's your take on it?
These were the games a few hours ago, right?
Yeah. So
right. So I watched like 80-90% of it.
Mm-hmm.
To me, it seems like, first of all, Vici got outplayed in lane a lot. Just straight up either getting 1v1 or 2v2 or like fighting the enemy jungle where it was like an even it was like even numbers, and they would just get outplayed by members of the LGD. And like usually Chuan wasn't in those fights. It was usually other people like mid 80 in support or something like that. Vici, I feel that. So bottom lane you have Imp PYL lane, mid you have God V lane, and then top you have Flame or Acorn, right?
Yeah.
And I think each of those players just exerts a lot of pressure. LGD's drafts have been surprisingly good. LGD's drafts have been actually, maybe they don't go by like the textbook, what I consider the textbook of you got to pick this and this and this. But I think that they've been, matching each, besides the obvious meme of like fucking Acorn playing Kennen when Flames on the team or some of that bullshit, but they've been matching the right players with the right champions and then getting them into good lanes and making, conscious and decisive decisions on whether to lane swap or not. So, in terms of putting themselves in the best positions possible in the early game, LGD has been looking really good. And at that point, when you usually get a lead in the early game because fucking Godvy's gonna outplay, Wayless is gonna outplay somebody, or Imp is gonna outplay somebody, like get a 1v1 kill in Vayne or something like that. That's when kind of the dominoes start to fall, right? And you don't even need that much jungle pressure. Like once you start having that much pressure collectively as a team, then you start pushing all your waves in, right?
Yeah.
Then people have to come clear those waves, and then you can make good inferred decisions about where the enemy jungler and the enemy support is, and you start laying traps for them, and then you put down the right wards, and then the top laner teleports in, and then LGD just executed some really nice team fights, especially when they were 2 or 3 or 4k gold ahead, just to steamroll and snowball the rest of the game. So in terms of like whether LGD played really well, yeah, but then in terms of whether we saw anything new or whether what we saw was indicative of how good LGD is in this last stretch of playoffs, or how good or bad Vici Gaming is in this last stretch of playoffs, I don't really think we discovered anything new. I think that I expected Vici Gaming to get 3-0'd pretty decisively. So in terms of making an assessment about where those teams are now, I think it's still really hard to tell. LGD is like here to play, but then they still, I think, Tron TBQ obviously remains a problem. Like this guy doesn't fucking do anything like throughout the whole game. Like, I'd rather have Razzleplasm, Lee Sin, Jungle, like Tron, Rek'Sai.
Nah, come on, man. If you're gonna
play Lee Sin, you can put Shuin on Lee Sin.
I was gonna say at least
that's like the one
there you go.
he's good at.
But then this guy like doesn't know how to play Evelynn. Like doesn't know how to play Echo. Doesn't know how to play Gragas. Rek'Sai, okay, maybe. But then just he puts no pressure in lanes. Pressure's not even about showing yourself and ganking a lane, which I guess he occasionally does, and even then he never makes the plays on the lanes. It's always like one of the laners, like either the top laner or like PYL, who makes the actual plays or executes the mind games on the lanes. Like this dude just He doesn't do the correct things, and the correct thing should be so easy when you have three laners who are just pressuring the game 24/7. Like Clearlove's job is so easy. He has three of the best laners in the world pressuring their lanes 24/7. He can just like, oh, I'm on Evelyn. This game is suddenly really easy. All the lanes are pushed, and I can just go to enemy jungle, put a green ward here, a pink ward here, and go gank the motherfucker on the top lane. Okay, but then this guy just doesn't know what to do. Imp gets a solo kill in bot lane. And he doesn't know what to do. He runs around scuttlecrap a little bit. At least he smites well. And, that's like his.
That's the thing. You're gonna go to Worlds, and he's just gonna be. He's gonna be stealing dragon after dragon, man. People are gonna be like, "Wow, this guy's an amazing player." Like, is that the TBQ? That's what they're gonna call it.
All jokes aside, though, all jokes aside, though, it is a real problem. It's nice that they didn't falter to Vici Gaming jungle pressure, because we all know how good Vici Gaming jungle pressure can be once they get rolling.
Mm-hmm.
But if Peng and what's the AD carry's name? Xuan,
yeah.
Xuan. If Peng and Xuan put no pressure in their lanes, and then they also don't have great wave clear. Like Peng usually plays Azir, which is fine, I guess fine for wave clear, and then Xuan plays champions like Corki and stuff like that all the time, right? Then you can't really expect them to carry. So then that means you have to get a decisive early game, and then start invading the enemy jungle and taking advantage of pressure on the jungler. But then just LGD laners are so strong that even with weak champions, or lanes that are countered by enemy, they still win lane and still manage to pull it off. So it's unfortunate, but that's the reality of it.
Mm-hmm. And so in game 1, we saw. I think that was probably my favorite game. But to be honest, I didn't finish the series though. But game 1 was amazing for me. Abe, you saw the Bard play from. Was that second game or first game?
It
was first game.
Okay, good.
Yeah, Bard.
We saw PYL Bard versus Mod. I feel like that's the matchup of the series, quite honestly.
Oh,
that was,
sure.
Yeah, 100%. That was the rotations that were made. It felt like we got to see so much of Imp's strength and coming into LGD, and the fact that he literally played Kog'Maw and played the lane alone, and that concept of really it shows so much for this player.
Well, to be honest, if you're playing with a Bardo lane, you're kind of playing the lane alone anyways.
It's kind of funny because it reminded me of last year, and I hate to draw the comparison between these two teams, but it's kind of readily available based on the Korean players that they got. But you saw something similar with Deft on Samsung Blue, where he would play Kog'Maw and Hart would go roam and ward and kind of leave him in lane, and they would pretty much expect him to die at least once, probably twice in lane. One cool thing about Imp, though, a lot of people kind of criticized him last year for being, obviously he would do these really weird, audacious plays that didn't always work out, and then Mado would just have to kind of either drag him back or leave him to die because he'd be like, all right, I can't save you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Imp has evolved into an incredibly self-sufficient AD carry, and even though LGD gets and should get a ton of credit for their map play and the way they organize the game and the way they plan and structure the game, is really impressive. I think their actual lanes, like Hughbo said, are incredibly impressive as well. And something that they don't really get a ton of credit for, I feel, is their actual just 1v1 laning is incredibly strong in addition to their map movements. Another thing I thought was really interesting in this series that kind of piggybacks on that idea as well, and also kind of ties into the TBQ problem, is how important Lulu was. Lulu had a 100% win rate across all 4 games of the series, and LGD was putting it either on GodV or on Acorn, and then the one game they lost, I believe Pung played it in the mid lane. And the reason why I think that's kind of super important, it doesn't have to be Lulu, but I think it's really important for LGD to have that kind of wave clear and pushing power, because then you can do the GodV roam, or you can have Acorn roam into the jungle and kind of make up for the fact that TBQ is not going to apply any sort of jungle pressure whatsoever. I remember the first game, there was a kill in bot lane because PYL was orchestrating this whole crazy skirmish with Bard, and then all of a sudden GodV just roams into the Vici jungle and solos World 6. randomly, like,
Yeah.
and that's unfortunately necessary for LGD because TBQ certainly isn't going to do that. So, I just thought that was a really interesting aside that came out of this series was just how important that pushing power of Lulu is
You know,
for this team.
and another thing that I found really interesting, I just looked at the picks and bans right now, was that the meta in this throughout this year, right, 2015, it's been kind of interesting because, you know, in the beginning of the year, like last year, 2014, I think meta was decided by kind of your AD carry and your mid laner. In the beginning of this year, it was decided by your mid laner and your top laner, and to some extent, I think, for a large part, a lot of people would argue that the most important champions in the meta are your jungler and support, because you know your jungler and support have to do most of the playmaking in this current stage of the game. But if you look at the LGD pick ban, that they always prioritize picking first round their AD carry, and so picking their AD carry in the first round.
Yeah.
I don't know why I speak like, you know, some Korean immigrant or something like that. Anyways, so
No, that's me every day. Don't even worry about it. That's Ethiopian immigrant, Korean immigrant. We got this.
The cool thing is that LGD in game 1 that they won, they first picked Kog'Maw. In game 2 that they lost, they picked Twitch in the 4th rotation, which is really funny. Twitch Kassadin, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the third game, in game 3, which they won, they picked Callista first rotation. In game 4, which they won, they picked Vayne first rotation. And they got Lulu for all of these champions. So you would think that if Imp wasn't playing a champion like Callista or Kog'Maw or, you know, Vayne, that Godvi would probably be playing, you know, something like Diana, or maybe Acor would be playing like Hecarim or Rumble or something like that. But because they understand that usually Imp can get a solo kill in lane, and that PYL is smart enough for that when the first towers go down or when they deem that it's necessary to lane swap, PYL can go get advantages for other lanes that might have losing matchups.
Yep.
They understand that where their strengths are, you know, namely in the bot lane and how imaginative the bot lane is, and that they play around that. So when the time comes, every single member is powerful, and they're all kind of like this orchestra. You saw it in like game, especially in game 3 and 4. Like they're like this orchestra around Imp, or fucking like this guy in Vayne would just go like so ham on the enemy carries, and like there's really nothing you could do about it. And it's not like these games were decided by, you know, huge momentous, you know, game-changing, match-deciding team fights in the mid-game. It was more like these small skirmishes that, you know, started adding up, and you could kind of tell after like 3 or 4 kills in the early game, like, oh, we know who's going to win this game. It's pretty obvious to us. So.
And so the real question is, oh god, and I love
the real question.
See, that's what the moment I said that, I was like,
So he's the real
wow.
Say to Tron when you bench this guy, like,
Here's the fake
Bring
question.
back Shashi.
Like LGD, they're pretty much a favorite in taking a world slot.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Do we
definitely.
think that? I know that Kelsey did have an article in which she said, like, spoke about the chances of LGD winning worlds.
oh, I read that blasphemous stuff. Yeah.
Do we think that this is a possibility? Let's say that EDG gets. Let's say EDG is not even an issue. Let's say they get kicked out.
Okay.
Like, let's say the brackets.
Can
Let's
win
pretend that he's not a
the.
thing.
As far as I know, like just reviewing the circuit points, the way they work, the
Yeah.
top circuit point getter just gets an automatic buy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
At
pretty
some
sure.
point- At some point, when does that lock in for EDG?
I guess if they.
Aren't they already locked? Aren't they already?
Top 4, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, what are they like? Do they have that buy from out of the regional qualifier locked up already?
They have. Oh my god. I think it's probably something like if they get third place or something like that.
Yeah, it's probably like if they get third place. That's something like that bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, their circuit points are ridiculous.
Because LGD's right up close to them, so.
Probably, yeah, it's probably pretty cemented that we'll just say EDG is going to get the bye out of the regional qualifier. I don't see any other team, unless something is drastically changed with IG and Snake, I don't see any other team beating out LGD through
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
So my question, let's say in Worlds, some NA team takes out EDG.
Okay.
Great.
Oh my god, what if that happens? Holy
That-
shit.
that would be
That'd
the
You
great-
will called it, and people are gonna come back to this China Talk episode, and they're gonna be like, "Fuck you, Razzle Positive, our hopes and dreams."
Yeah, TSM.
TCM.
They're gonna fucking food poison Death now.
Oh,
Dude.
Oh no, don't.
you say that now as a joke. Anyway.
I know. Hey man, it already happened.
Oh my god.
You
So
never
let's say Worlds Finals is LGD versus SKT, or even Fnatic, you never know. Let's say SKT, since it's more, you can actually compare the two a little more viably. Well, at least with Fnatic, there's a lot more questions. Do you think that LGD...
GDP Fnatic, like holy moly! I think that's a toss up. You think fucking Reignover is gonna lose to this Tron guy in jungling? Like I hate the comparison of like top to top jungle to.
I
just
think
like
LGD would destroy Fnatic.
I mean, I think that would happen, but I think that discussion, whenever you have that discussion, people will always bring out the good old, well, they're really dominant in their region, so you never know. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? What is that supposed to mean? We do know. You watch their games. Like, I don't know.
I mean,
No,
if
it's
that's
hard
what
to
we're
know.
talking about. Fnatic makes way too many mistakes, and LGD
Yeah, the problem is that
makes all
Fnatic.
of that.
The thing is that the way Fnatic wins their games in Europe, I don't think would apply to Korean and Chinese teams at the top. But I could be wrong. I mean,
I know,
and
but
additionally, like, what matchup were we talking about in the Vici series? We're talking about Mata versus PYL, like, and then you put Yellow Star up against PYL, and I honestly think Yellow Star is a fantastic support, but I think PYL is better. Sorry,
Yeah, but
I know
I
I'm gonna get a ton of hate for that, but yeah.
you shouldn't.
I don't. I think it's like marginal though. I think PYL is better, but I don't think it's as. I don't think it's like some like world.
And by the
game changer
No, it's
kind
not
of.
like a huge stomp, but
Mhm.
I mean, PYL is a better support than Yellow Star, and he has like arguably a better cast.
Yeah.
The funny thing,
Aside from TBQ, because TBQ.
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing for me is that, you know, like LGD, the way they usually, like, they know how to win in all different sorts of ways, right? Like, we've seen this fucking, like, messy ass BS ways they win that you don't deserve to freaking win, but they still pull out the W. But then a lot of times it's, you know, Godv on freaking, like, Kassadin, or he's on a champion like, you know, like, Ari, or he's on a champion, like, what's another champion?
Diana.
Diana was what I was looking for, right? Or like Oriana or something like that, whatever. And then Imps on Callisto or Vayne. And then one of those two lanes will get a solo kill, right? And then after one of those two lanes get a solo kill, they start moving to enemy jungle and then proceed to stomp from there. So you would assume, and then for Fnatic's side, Fnatic actually makes a lot of mistakes in the early game, but since a lot of EULCS teams fail to execute late, they're able to, you know, make a random pick. Like half of EU LCS games are ended by someone making a random pick, and then like the perfect rumble equalizer for the first time in the whole entire.
Yeah. You almost forgot that's the surprising factor. You almost forgot that ability existed in the game, and then it just lays down through the battlefield, and you're like, holy shit. And Quickshot's like, I do declare. No, I'm
I don't think that's how he said.
I'm just kidding.
I will say this though, to bring it back to the SKT conversation. If
Yeah.
I'm looking at Fnatic versus LGD, or if I'm looking at honestly LGD versus SKT,
Yeah.
I'm looking at the jungle matchup. So you have TBQ and Reignover,
Yeah.
and then you have and I can only draw from MSI because that's honestly the only example we have of Fnatic playing against other opponents.
Yeah.
But what happened to MSI? Like, Reignover, you can see his pathing, like, slowly improves throughout that series, and then that final game, Bengi just dumpsters him in the jungle. Like, absolutely dumpsters him.
Yeah, but then Botlane had no
like,
pressure that game.
Yeah, he tracks his entire thing. But what I'm saying is I don't think Fnatic, and one problem I've seen, honestly, from their games this split, is I don't think Reignover's pathing is creative enough. And when he falls behind in the early game, the team, if you notice, they try to make an effort to get him more involved in the game because so much stuff goes through Reignover on Fnatic. And I think that Fnatic, if they had the time and if they were if they were like pressured, like LGD has been, to level up in spite of their weakest link, they would be at a higher level of play than where they're at. But since LGD is in a more strong region and is constantly getting pressured and just plays more games, they're so much more used to covering up the fact that TBQ is their weakest link by creating lane pressure, by like putting the Lulu in the mid or the top lane, by like having God be Acorn and PYL all in the jungle getting wards down to track their opponents. So, and I mean, that's what I think puts LGD ahead. I think the SKT matchup would be interesting because of that reason. Because LGD is so ready to cover for TBQ, but at the same time, like that would be the weakest. Because if we're thinking of what other, well, I guess if Snake went for some reason, they would have arguably a weaker jungler. But like, if you're thinking of the other junglers that are in contention, Cacao, Swift, and Clear Love, that's TBQ is going to be the weakest Chinese jungler. But if the finals are SKT versus LGD, that's where I'm going to be looking, because I'd also think that Bengi might lose to a Swift, a Clear Love, but he definitely won't lose to TBQ. So it would be an interesting matchup.
Okay. I actually agree with you more now. Yeah, LGD would probably dumpster a team like Fnatic, especially since Fnatic makes a lot of early mistakes, and then that's kind of how LGD wins their games. They like not only do they wait for enemy mistakes, they kind of just outplay, like straight up outplay, and not just outplay through like, oh, like Vayne tumble, auto, like condemn, and then like
the conceptual
like, is in your enemy jungle, killing your jungler like for no reason.
It's not even that. Like, it's like watching like I think Jack Wang Lal posted a damage graph, and fucking like Bard had more damage than Rek'Sai in the game.
Yeah.
It was like camping brushes, and when the enemy jungler kind of walked into the brush, he'd stun that guy, like hit him with the auto, and then just tunnel out of there.
Yeah.
Like security tunnel out of there. Holy moly!
Like PYL's Bard was hilarious throughout that game because they would chase him so much. They would never stop chasing him, and he would just tunnel, just like lock them, run away with his like. That's the best thing about Bard running away, by the way, is his animation. He's just waddling away. That's the greatest thing about that. So now, go on.
What would it take to beat LGD? I think if you have laners who can match up, like who can go even, dude. Honestly, it might even be a composition thing. Just pick Orianna mid. You pick Orianna or Lulu mid, and then you pick Corki bottom lane, and you pick Maokai or Shen top lane, and then I think you have a chance. Because those are champions that it's literally impossible to lose mid. I mean, it's literally impossible to lose lane.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that is actually impossible to do.
So then you pick like strong early game champs, and early game is kind of in the meta anyways. You don't really wait for late game. I mean, like obviously you have to grab some wave clear, right? So you just grab immense wave clear in the early game, and then you just send your support and jungler to kind of go ward out their jungle and try to make a pick, and then you snowball that pick off of dragon, and then you get a turret. Yeah, I think you just it comes down to picks and bans more than any kind of player thing. It comes down to like, do you pick Corki, first rotation, or do you pick Sivir first rotation, and after that, then do you pick, do you grab the Rek'Sai, or do you try to grab maybe even Twisted Fate, right, just to put even more pressure on the enemy jungler, and then you pick like Twisted Fate Evelynn, and then you kind of try to camp enemy jungle camps. Then I think that can work out.
Okay, so here's the question, because this is the best segue I can possibly do.
Is it the real question?
It's the real question. just so you guys didn't know. This is the real question. LGD is now facing Snake, and so what is Snake's like cookie? I wouldn't say cookie cutter, but their matchup generally, they usually have Zatai. I mean Zatai. He's basically Zatai.
To me.
They basically have Flandre on Shen, you on any kind of like control, or like actually you just plays anything. Like he creates a lot of control in the mid lane. I think he can definitely match up to way less. And then bot lane will just. What will bot lane play actually? I guess that's very dependent
play
on.
Kalista.
Yeah, it's actually that's dependent though, because now that they have Martin, that they just kind of swap in every now and
Oh
again.
my god, that guy is so bad. I can't bear to watch him play.
You hate Martin?
Yeah,
Wow.
he's not that good.
Oh damn!
People like praise him a lot. They're like, oh, he like fits stylistically. He's not good.
I think he's better than Crystal, honestly.
You know, Crystal sucks too. They're both really bad.
No, dude, I think.
But do you think Crystal? Okay, so now that's the thing. Do you think Martin slash?
Do I think Martin's better? Do I think Martin would be better? Yeah, like bring in a fucking quirky player. Enough with this damn Callista. Like, you know, there's several. Okay,
Martin Ella. Do you think
Draven BS? You know?
Do you think Martin Ella would lose lane? By the way, to PYL Imp.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
but that's not the point. The point is you just have Corky Q and you clear waves all day.
That's the thing, though. Do you think they would be able to lose?
Push forward.
Because Martin Ella is actually a really safe lane, or at least Ella will just play Janna like a lot.
Martinella sounds like a Corona did.
It
Another,
does
like,
actually.
or something like that.
The Martin Ella.
I don't know. I mean,
By the way, Beast and Ella are also really bad. Like I'm talking like,
Ooh.
you know.
Here we go. It's about
they're
that
not
real
using-
talk now.
They're not using Beast anymore, though, right?
Yeah, they're using
Yeah.
ZZR.
They're using ZZR.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, whatever.
ZZR,
Yeah,
for sure.
still
ZZR is definitely an upgrade. I feel.
I know, but still same like not great players. Like I watched this. I watched the games maybe like 2 weeks ago when they were playing. Hold on, who were they playing? They were playing some team, and then like there were so many obvious things that the ZZR guy could have done, and he just missed it. And I felt like, and it wasn't like really complicated stuff. It was like really basic stuff. Like there was a ward right there. You saw the jungler walk there. Go into the enemy side of the jungle and put ward at wolf camp, and then win the game. You know. But these guys, he just didn't.
League of Legends is so easy.
Yeah,
League of
it really
Legends.
is a game, and he just didn't do it.
Something I think
Ella has been disappointing, kind of disappointing for me because I watched a lot of the week 1 and week 2 games because I had the initial hype, and then I wasn't impressed with him week 1, week 2. I don't know. I guess maybe he's gotten like a little better, but not that much.
Ella's actually improved quite a bit. I think over the split.
Sure.
Like he's not like world class or anything, but I'd say he's still like in the upper echelons of the region. But I mean, in terms of LGD and Snake, like I feel like LGD wins that matchup, but it's hard to say because if we look at the set against Vici, it's a really hard set to gauge just because like whenever you put LGD against Vici, you're basically putting a team that's good at one thing over another team that's good at one thing, but LGD is just better at that one thing than Vici, so it's like they kind of have the same kind of win conditions, but LGD is just better at executing it. And whereas with Snake, it's like it's a matter of LGD, and it's not even that their team fighting is bad, but it's a matter of LGD avoiding 5v5 scenarios just because that's Snake's forte. Like if Snake 5v5s, that's what they're best at, and it's up to LGD to just be smarter than Snake in order to avoid those situations and win.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't know.
I can already see it now, like a 58-minute game, and then like Flandre has been doing nothing all game, but he just like flash taunts 5 men into 5 people and like wins the game for them, and we're like, wow, what a god!
What a god!
Hero.
And that's
This
what
guy
I think.
Shin is really good. I like it. I like his Shen, even though it's an easy champion to play.
Yeah, Flandre is playing more impactful champions like individually in the game. So, but I do think that I mean I don't know. I feel like Acorn and Flame both match up, and yeah, something I wanted to clear up that I said before the broadcast is that like there's obviously the meme where Acorn is playing Kennen and Flame's playing all these tanky champions, but I think the only way they can avoid that happening is if like is if they like when they're showing players on the bench, like they just block out Flame's name on the client to the other team, and like they just like they put like a curtain like over Flame's thing, and then when the game starts and loading screen happens, they just like it's like toss it's like, oh my god, it's Flame. It's like otherwise as soon as Flame is in the game, like they already know that the way Flame wants to play and the way Flame wants to win lane, so then he's forced into a tanky player, or he's forced into a tanky champion, usually, unless he's picking Hecarim or something, get away with it.
Yeah.
But he's usually forced into a tanky champion like Maokai or something, just because he knows he is going to be dove in the game. Like, if Flame plays, like, he's going to be focused out. So, that's a lot of the time, it's not because they're, like, trying to sabotage the team by making Acorn play Flame champion. It's just the circumstances of them being on the team and, like, knowing that he's on the team. But
also, I want to say one thing. I saw on Reddit front page, like, Flame 1v3 OMG or something. It wasn't that fucking good. It kind of sucked, to be honest. Like,
OMG 1v3.
This guy just walks like Maokai just like walks, pounds the ground, like it knocks the guy up.
OMG just like
blue card, like, Kulak's in like a blue card and then dies.
Yeah.
No.
OMG
I don't even
themselves. Oh yeah, dude,
Yeah.
we still need the gif of Cool like walking up at level 2 zone to blue card and then retreating in this half full thing.
He like the
Minions were
blue
just
card.
demolishing him. Oh my god.
Here? Or
Huh?
what champion was the enemy?
Let me check.
Level 2 or level 3. And this guy, it was today, and he like locks in blue card. And then he like tanks minions and walks all the way up the lane, and then he tanks minions and walks all the way under his turret, and by the time he's done, he has like 1/4 health left.
Get to check like all of his potions. Oh, so good.
And suddenly he gets like starts getting like assaulted under turret with these sand soldiers. Like,
Oh my god.
There's a free lane and he just like soaked everything. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, I do think LGD comes out on top there, but again, it's hard it's hard to say because I need to see LGD playing other equally intelligent teams before I say how they perform, because obviously in the regular season they were a bit inconsistent and they had their own fair share of like health issues and roster issues and visa issues and all this other shit. So it's hard to say. They always show up in playoffs, but they have yet to face another team that's like equally as intelligent as they are, which is I think going to be the issue against teams like the top Korean teams.
do you think Snake is equally as intelligent?
No, I think Snake. I think Snake has tried to run split push and expand their repertoire with like poke and stuff like that. But ultimately, at the end of the day, they always want to force into a situation, or they always want to force a situation where they're 5v5 team fighting. So if LGD wins the set, I mean, I still don't think it's going to gauge how well they'll do against a team like SKT, because stylistically, it's just so different. But I don't know.
Yep. And so now, of course, Vici is now going to be playing IG. Do you think?
I hope Vici wins.
Oh,
God,
God.
I hate this IG team so
So
bad.
does LGD, because now like I know Kelsey was talking about
Yeah,
this earlier,
something.
but she basically figured out like LGD wants Vici to win so they don't have to face
Yeah.
Edward Gaming in
Yeah.
the first round because of how the seeding works.
So
Funny.
Vici ends up beating IG. That's like a god sign for LGD.
That's like, here you go, LGD, like take.
I mean, honestly, if like, I could actually see Vici beating IG in the set if they performed like they did against OMG. But like again, I still feel like that was a massive overperformance on their part. Not because they played like smarter than usual, but because their team fighting was a lot better than it's ever been. I don't know if that's going to stay a consistent thing, but
I mean, feel like that's something that's.
IG, though, is like they're so inconsistent. Like you can say that, oh, okay, when they do come together, they're a really good team, and like you just let Rookie farm, and then he dumpsters people late game, and you have Zatai drawing pressure top, so that Kikko can basically do whatever he wants. But like, you can't always rely on them to perform like really at all.
It's not even.
And I like IG. Like I actually want Zatai. I love Zatai.
Fuck that guy.
Hughbo.
Continuing with your point, it's not like these guys, like, when they lose games, it's not like Rookie and Kakao have, like, terrible KDAs where they just get, like, dumpstered in lane and then, like, fucking, like, die in all these team fights. They usually end up, the infuriating thing is, they almost always end up with good stat lines. It's just that whether they can, come together and, send off the appropriate amount of damage in certain team fights, these guys are always going to, like, give you good fantasy points and all this bullshit. But then, where are the wins, right? And so then they're like, sometimes they have like 300 CS, and he's like, oh, like Azir Q.
They just make the most stupid decisions late game, and like it's
like collectively too. It's
it's I don't even know. Like they'll just do something that's completely unfathomable. Like, why did you decide to invade the enemy jungle at this time? Or
and I mean, I think, and that's why I really hope IG doesn't like make it to Worlds by some miracle. Just because I feel like oh my god, that'd be such a poor representation of China. Just because, like, IG's the problem is like they're just by nature going to have boring games against other international competition, because they either get ahead and then throw it all away late game because they make a stupid decision if they don't end up winning, or if they fall behind, they just dance around until they lose. So either way, their games are gonna fucking suck to watch against.
And they're
like,
gonna be long. They're gonna be
really long and terrible.
Yeah, long and just absolute shit. Like, I don't even want to think about it. I actually.
like another person I want to go to Worlds is Cacao. Like I've seen,
No,
like
we don't
the
need this
fact
guy
that
at
KT
Worlds.
Bullets, the fact that KT Bullets didn't go to Worlds.
I want to
in
see TBQ
2013.
at Worlds more than I want to see Cacao at Worlds.
All right, so Kelsey Huber, Kelsey Huber, Huber.
TBQ has to have the torch passed from Lucky.
Yeah.
And
So
Dada.
I'm crying right now.
Huber, who do you think is gonna win, Vici or IG?
I think Vici's gonna win. I have no faith in IG. Like these people are so they just sometimes they get it right, but then even when they get it right, it's not like anything fantastic. It's like Cacao outplay at Dragon Pit. What are you gonna do? It's just that's a mechanical outplay. But then on the strategic level, you always something that veteran once said to me that I thought was good, and I think this is like a common. This is not like just him saying it's like a common thought is you always want to have mechanical games that are one off of mechanical decision making are the worst games because you always want to win a game off of like the 100% best play, right? And the 100% best play usually means that you limit the other team's options and then you give them like no room to breathe and you make the correct strategical mistakes. These guys don't ever make 100% best play. Like they really don't. Like in a rare case they make 100% best play and it'll go well. But then even after, like let's say they make one good decision, okay? They camp enemy blue buff. They fight around enemy blue buff. They get enemy blue buff, okay? And then they take their own. So they starve blue away from mid laner. Then they don't know to camp the mid laner. Then they just go back to laning and farming on the side lanes. Like what are you doing, right? So in terms of trying to learn, in terms of trying to enforce and employ strategy and just like basic understanding of the game, I really don't think that they understand what to do. And obviously when you think of that team, you think of Cacao and Rookie, but then a few weeks ago I read some articles, and even now just based on watching their games, I don't even think that they consistently appropriate their goal to the same players every single game. I think they just like send random whoever's closest to the side waves gets the farm. And even though like that's good in some ways, that's good because lanes will generally always be pushed out. But then if you know that your two most inconsistent players, the Koreans, because the rest are bad, right? The rest are consistently mediocre or like below average. So if you know that your two best players, need farm to carry, then you might as well give it to them. But sometimes Z-Time like a tank like throws a sapling, activates ultimate, pounds that shit, and like takes like a full side wave of farm, and you're kind of like, come on, man, like don't do this to me.
Unfortunate. And so Emily, who do you think is gonna win this one?
Oh god, it's hard. For some reason when you said that, Hughbo, I had this weird image of like that one the Ty Trundle game where he's just, slowly hammering away at an inhibitor. Anyway,
dude, wasn't he like 1v4ing that game?
Yeah,
shit.
Yeah,
people were trying to like jungle invade him, and he's like, "I'm not locked in here with you."
There wasn't even like an enemy tank. There wasn't even like a tank on the enemy team. He was just like fucking fed, like.
Yeah. I mean,
while you guys were talking, I was creating a hand gesture that was like the train was on track, and then it went like. Okay.
I think the thing with IG is, I'm gonna be watching Cacao because I feel that a lot of his junglers have come back into the meta. So I think that's one thing that will be interesting to watch. Yeah, specifically Elise. And then, I mean, the other thing that IG really comes down to is whether they can get Rookie farmed enough and then do something in the late game, or whether for some reasons the Ty can just go off and like carry because he's apparently like ridiculously motivated right now because he really, really wants to go to Worlds. I think strategically Vici can like outmaneuver them. So it's gonna be a weird, I don't know. It's going to be a really weird close set. I still think IG will take it, eventually.
Oh, God.
But like Hughbo said, it's not, I don't think it's going to be anything like we're going to be looking at and being like, wow, this IG team is like really powering up. It's just going to be like, oh, IG won.
Yeah, it's probably honestly, it's probably gonna be like a 3-2, and
Yeah.
it's gonna be alternating games for whoever
Yeah.
wins. Like IG win one, lose one, win one, lose one, split 1-1 since
Oh.
2013. The dream, you know.
1-1 till the end. That's just. All right, Drex.
I'm actually gonna go ahead and say that Vici has a much better chance of winning than IG personally, just because I actually do think it's gonna be a little closer than I thought it would. Just because Emily's right, like Kakao having some meta junglers back in, or some junglers back in the meta that he favors is really really good for the team, and I still think that Rookie individually is incredibly strong, but I don't know. It also depends. Like if we see Vici, if we see like last few weeks regular season Vici, it'll be a little bit closer than the playoffs Vici we've been seeing. I didn't get to fully watch all the LGD games from Vici, so I don't know if they kept their performance in LGD were just better. But in their set against OMG, they fixed the kinks in their armor that were weak points before, and while still keeping or maintaining their intelligence and their strong map play and jungle pressure. So. Yeah, I do think Vici definitely has a higher chance of winning, especially because I don't know, just IG just I don't know. They make too many mistakes late game, and I just think that Vici's too smart to like let that happen, especially with their vision control. Like Vici has really good vision control, so if IG does something stupid late game, I think Vici will be able to identify it a lot faster than some other opponents in the LPL and be able to capitalize a lot faster or take something out of it. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be a stomp by any means. I think it'll be relatively close. I don't know. I just hope that IG doesn't use fucking time, dude. Like that's.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If IG uses time, I just.
So the way I see this going is like game 5, like it's gonna be like a critical moment, and then for some reason, like fucking, you know, like. Who's the AD carrier of IG? I'm blanking out right now.
Kid in time.
Kid, yeah, sorry. Kid of all people is like everyone's like posturing around Baron, and like some random ass member of IG will be farming bot lane or something like that. And this guy has no TP, and then Vici Gaming will like start 5v4 or get Baron or something like that, and just end the game through like a stupid thing.
You never know. It'll be the comeback of the CLG season 2 strat. Just put it Corky with TP. That'll be fine. He gets that bot lane wave just completely squeaky clean.
Yeah, I'm actually interested to see if because Zitaya has been doing pretty good the last few weeks, so I'm interested to see if like the motivation does push him to be like really good.
Okay.
So.
And
Can I just say how hilarious it is that we're talking about this matchup now and like Vici overcoming IG when we talked about this same matchup going into Demacia Cup and we're like, oh my gosh, IG is just gonna wipe the floor with Vici. Like,
well, yeah,
they're dead.
Vici were still using Hitong and...
They were using, Hitong and Endless.
That dude sucks.
Yeah, Pung is, by the way, like, such
way better than
way better. And it's so hard to really say much on him because it's one of those situations is like, am I liking him because he's a great player, or am I liking him because he's like such a massive upgrade to like Hitong? And what does that mean? Like, is he just a mediocre player, or is he actually good?
I think he's actually good.
Okay.
No, I think he's mediocre.
See, now
I don't think he's great, but I don't think he's better than like Pawn or exactly.
I want to say
he's mediocre. What?
Hitong was like a straight fucking shitter. Like it was so bad.
Hitong would straight up throw team fights. Pung is not gonna straight up throw team fights. Like I feel like
Pung lands crucial abilities that team fights.
Pung comes onto the team and Mada's like, okay, I can work with this. Like, he's actually going to land ultimates. He's actually going to do things in team fights instead of die.
I guess that comes down to how he'll play in the next set. Because I really want to see how he is in a pressured scenario, especially against Rookie, actually. Yep. That's going to be good.
That'll be a good match.
But then when you start like bending away like Orianna, Azir, and like fucking what else is like Orianna, Azir, and like Lulu, then you know what other options are left for this like
they better not be bad. Oh, against
and for reference, I mean, he did get significantly outclassed by Wayless, which I'm sure people were expecting. But
but that's what I mean. Like, I don't think Pong is a world class mid laner, but he's way better than Hitong. I don't think he's better than like Rookie or Deft or Wayless, but I think he's like hovering around top 4 or 5.
Drex, you can't like automatically. That doesn't automatically make him good. You have to like realize the scale of things.
By the way,
there's 12 teams though, dude.
You know, Peng right here. And then, like, I have to, like, cross...
If he's 4th or 5th, then that's good, okay? Like, if he's, like, 6th or 7th, that's, like...
Like
Yeah, 4. Okay, that's true. If you're 4th place out of 12 teams,
I don't know. I don't know if he's the 4th or 5th. Like
I'd rather have punished over.
Oh no! You better not! You better not pull out the punish card.
No.
Literally, a man who gets. It's just like, you know what? Okay, we're going into this now. We're going into this because so World Elite and RNG, because this needs to be said. World Elite and RNG went through. We spoke about World Elite and how we think that World Elite probably should have been in the playoffs, but you know what? That's just too bad for them. They just sucked throughout the entirety of the season.
I'm happy that World Elite is back in the LPL.
Yeah.
I'm very happy.
That was really good, by the way.
It's been really depressing to have a split without World Elite. Oh my god.
Yeah.
They will make changes. They have to make changes. You know, like just that fan base will go mental. Will literally go mental if they don't make changes.
They drop a Luca and just pick up Looper and nothing changes.
Just pick up 957. He's on your fucking.
Yeah, there we go.
Dude,
See?
Oh my god.
Literally.
I don't need him anymore.
By the way, World Elite doesn't even need to do much to make their team good. Like, for instance, you look at their bottom lane, they probably need to change up their support, to be honest. But Mystic is good.
No, I don't think
Mystic is good, dude.
I think Mystic has improved.
Mystic is one of the most improved LPL.
And I thought he was.
He's not top 6 AD.
I don't know. I'd actually argue that.
I would argue that.
At least in laning, he's top 4. I'd say, honestly. Team fighting, different story. But that's hard. It's not fair to gauge because World Elite's always sucked.
You could be good at laning if you literally have practice by playing Vayne every single game of the LPL, dude. Come on now.
Look at his matchup. Like, for instance, I can give SMLZ the benefit of the doubt of in that lane because he's with Love CD or Ruo, but I do not think he's.
Well, he is with Conan. That's true. That is the ultimate.
Yeah. See. Like,
ball chain to like ankle ball to your like.
I'm and Mystic has one lane with Conan. With SMLZ, he's like SMLZ is like consistency, like just like lost lane. I just look at him and I'm like, I don't want to call you a shitter yet, but with at least Mystic, I want to say that he's good. Like, at the very least, he's good. And
I think he's mediocre.
Damn.
I think Mystic has improved a lot
Yeah.
since I saw him in OGN, to be honest. Like,
Oh,
I've
God,
actually,
yeah,
there have been times when I've been legitimately impressed with him, and before I just figured bringing him on would just be like, oh, here's another losing lane for Spirit to have to try to, like, stem the bleeding on, right? But I honestly think he's held his own really well.
And would you honestly put Mystic on any other AD carry on that team? Let's be honest. Like, look at that top. That top lane is perma Scion. Literally, he is not changing from that top lane.
Can we talk about how did you guys see Kelsey's GIF of where the Scion is coming down and then the TF flashes out of the Scion train and then the Scion and then comes out to the TF anyway. That's literally the funniest thing I've ever.
That is so good.
Oh, Luca, the Scion god.
Jesus, what a. He's good at Scion. I'm not gonna lie. Like,
he's good.
He's
at
had a lot
Scion.
of practice.
Yeah, I mean, you can't deny he's good at Scion. That's the funny thing is because people were like, dude, Luca doesn't suck. People are just like haters or whatever. And then like, but he was able to play Scion like every fucking game at IEM. I mean, seriously, like nobody fucking banned it.
That's the best thing about World Elite. By the way.
And they gauged it off of their fucking game against TSM. That was the worst. He's like, dude, his Scion was like beating up Dyrus and bullying him. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, granted, Dyrus has gotten a lot better.
Yeah, he has. But that's just like...
I mean, it was just such a stupid comparison.
That's the thing about a Luker, though. By the way, that's the thing about World Elite that I love and why they're back in, is that even though they're complete shit at team fighting, they'll team fight. They're not like IG. They won't bleed to death. They'll just, like, the Scion ulti will come through, will whiff, they'll still force the shit out of the fight, and then the fight will happen and they'll lose. And then they'll do it again, and then they could... But I remember when they won a game. Who did they win off of? It was off of a really good team.
They actually won against EDG.
Yeah. I think it was EDG.
Where Spirit would just force these fights with explosive cask, and a Luca would come in, and like they would somehow win the fight and then win the game.
It was some unbelievable game. It had to be EDG. It was either EDG or Tragedy.
There were 2 EDG games where it was won off of a late game team fight because Spirit decided to go in.
Like, World Elite would force team fight after team fight after team fight, and they had such a massive goal deficit, but then they would just be in a situation where Mystic on Vayne would just like, oh yeah, he's Vayne. It doesn't matter how far behind he is. If he just like gets that team fight, it's okay. They win the game.
I don't know. It's funny because comparing World Elite to like Unlimited Potential UP, which obviously unfortunately did not make the LPL, right?
Yeah.
Make it back to the LPL. Like you look at World Elite, just like you look at their players. There's like one superstar player, like arguably best in the world at his role player, right?
Yeah.
And the rest of the four, I actually consider the rest of the four role players. You know, like they're not great, but they're role players. Even Conan has his moments, like just of playing okay. But then you look at in the limited potential, and they have two supers. I think they have two superstar players. I think Hart is superstar player, and I think Luang for top lane is superstar player. And then they have three like really bad. Like I was making meme with Punished earlier, but this guy is really bad.
Yeah.
This guy sucks. And then I think Sketch is super bad too.
That's unfortunate with Sketch, by the way, because Sketch used to be a pretty big hyper carry. But I guess that's an LSPL. That's not even near the same level. Not even close to the same level.
Sketch was good on Ashe.
Amy too. What happened to Amy?
Yeah.
Oh, Amy. Well, I didn't expect much from Amy. Everybody knows what I thought of Amy. Like, I loved Amy as a player, but going A in this meta and B with that playstyle, he goes into LPL and he will get shit on because he's a player that doesn't know. He got shit on in the LSPL because he's not a player who knows his limits. Like, there was literally a time in which he went up against this team. UP went up against Legend Dragons, and I think Legend Dragons bumped them down to the lower bracket.
Yeah,
and
they dumpstered them in the first round of playoffs.
And it was simply because they got it was in the tank meta. And who was the jungler for Legend Dragon? I don't remember. But
Legend Dragon, the one with the Taiwanese or Hong Kong players or whatever.
Yeah.
That was a good team. I remember. Yeah.
They were decent. They were good. And it was simply because their jungler played Nunu and he just crushed him. Objectively, and he proved that Amy is not an objective-based player. He can't control objectives. He overstays in team fights, and he gets killed because he's too impulsive. Like he doesn't plan, and that was the funny thing because that was Amy's that was the good point of Amy's personality when he was playing like Lee Sin. That was legitimately how VG Gaming got into the LPL because he would play Lee Sin and he would solo carry. From just like going in randomly and getting these assassinations, getting these kills. Like that was yeah.
Sounds like we're talking about Swift right now instead of
Yeah.
No, but that's just how it is, and so I wanted to talk about. That's why I think we should end this show on this tournament. The relegation tournament.
I want to talk about after this though.
Okay.
I do want to talk about Gu really quickly because I gotta I have this whole this finale in my mind of how
closing bit. We'll talk about Gu, and so World Elite and RNG comes in. RNG with the most painful entry into the LPL I've ever seen. That was just just so people know. So when people look back at this episode, 21-44. Danmu Gaming could have been your LPL team going into this team. You could have been watching a lot of games where you just heard Dear Satan with the kill, blah blah blah, or Dear Satan getting killed. He would have been your new Punished, but thankfully that didn't happen.
Bet you if they somehow made it to Worlds, you'd have to name change anyway. So
oh yeah. Dear S.
They probably have to change their name. Like 21-44 is stupid as fuck. And you guys please get the name for Worlds.
They're probably just call yourself Danmu Gaming, thank you, but Danmu Gaming. So yeah, and so UP's gone, and so I want to ask you guys, Emily.
Yeah.
Oh wait, Hughbo?
No, I'm just saying it's a shame that Hart and Long.
Yeah, it makes me really sad that UP's gone.
So what was your final thoughts of this team? What the good points, the bad points, and what you think the future for some of these players are? Let's start with Kelsey Huber. Hughbo, what'd you think about this? Hughbo?
Sometimes this team was I don't want to say that. Okay, I'm not gonna say that, but
the EU flame coming out.
Yeah,
all right.
Sometimes this team just you look at the maybe walking in face. They're like, oh shit, these guys might be at Baron, so they walk to Baron, and none of them have blue trinket, so they face check every single brush into the Baron pit.
Yeah.
Then for some reason Punish goes in first with AP Ezreal or something like that.
Oh my god.
He gets caught by Threshold. He cuts it out. And then everyone's still collapsing, right?
Yeah.
And then Hart like flashes in Janna ultimates everyone away, and then they all run away, but still get caught anyways because like a Rumble Lord or something like that. That's like literally the story of limited potential. No, that team has, like I said, I think 2 legit superstar type players. Luong, top laner, like legitimate. I think when he's playing tanks, he's a legitimate threat to any game.
Yeah.
Like, he's really, really good. And Hart, who's bailed out, unlimited potential, like so many times.
Yeah.
And in a meta where your top laner is playing not as much Hecarim, right? Because Vayne is in the meta, so Hecarim's not being played that anymore. Vayne is in the meta, so it's hard to play Gnar. So, I mean, like, when your top laner is mostly playing Shen, Gnar, and Maokai, right? Like, support is playing Janna, mostly Janna, okay?
Mostly, yeah.
Then you need your AD carry and mid laner to carry.
Yeah.
And then when they get super safe stuff, when they get super safe mobile champions, like, that's a funny thing. Punish is to play a safe mobile champion, but that champion doesn't exist. It was called Runeglaive Ezreal, and it lasted for, like 2 weeks before they hotfixed that shit, and then they sent them back to the Shadow Realm, okay?
Yeah.
So, he needs to play wave clear champions that have an escape, but none of those exist, besides maybe Azir, and then Punish Azir not that good. So, it's really unfortunate because like the two carries for that team, Sketch and Punish, just really didn't do anything. Additionally, Amy had no idea how to play League of Legends. Like this guy literally looked like solo queue every game because he would be ganking lanes. He wouldn't even like ward enemy jungle. He would just be ganking lanes, and that kind of made Hart look bad too because for all of Hart's team fight prowess, like the early game never looked that great. It never looked as cerebral as it did. As if you look at PYL or Mako or like Mata and the top tier LPL teams, you could see like the mind games going on. You could see them camping brushes and trying to bait people into face checking certain areas, but that just never happened. These guys just stuck to their lanes. The lane swap was ass. Like the lane swap was complete. It was like really terrible. And
did you like that part where Punish got like an early kill, and when it was like just like off of a gank, it was great, and then he got solo killed in the lane with that advantage that he had. Literally, he initiated with a Z ulti and then got solo killed. And
it's really really bad. Yeah. But you do have to feel sorry though for Long and Hart. Yeah. I hope at least like Hart leaves because like, he could be so good. I think that guy could be like a top 5 support in the world right now. He probably is a top 5. I think Kelsey Moser would argue that he's top 5 support in the world, maybe top 3. And that he's just being held back. Imagine like Hart and fucking Spirit playing in a team together, like the New World Elite. Like
New World Elite. That's the dream.
Reunite them, please.
Yeah.
Oh, but that would mean that one of the Koreans had to leave, which is obviously going to be Mystic. So, like,
that's true.
We'll see though. Okay, Drexen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. UP was shit, but the one thing I did like was that the one way they could possibly win the game is with their chain CC, which they were pretty good at. So if they were running like, Sketch was running like Ashe, and then they ran a mid TF or something, they could like lock down targets and like get there really fast to capitalize on people generally making mistakes and turn it around. That's how they won games. But other than that, like I don't know, there wasn't really anything too impressive. I do feel really bad for Hart on that team. I guess I didn't really analyze Long enough to make a opinion on him one way or another. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. It was kind of unique how they ran 80 carries, and that was one thing I liked about them. Is though even though Sketch was an LSPL hyper carry, he'd play like Urgot and Ashe, or he'd play like Callista, but not because he was like good at Callista and like good putting out a lot of damage, but because the ultimate was like utility based, I guess. So I don't know. There's not overly too much to say about them. I do feel kind of bad just because I feel like a lot of, or at least a couple players in the team have been anchored, but I'm sure they'll find homes if they don't want to play an LSPL with that roster, which they probably shouldn't, because I think there's greener pastures for at least a couple of those players. But yeah, I don't know.
Emily?
And let's face it, I would have been way more depressed if UP made it in over World Elite. So.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
We had to pick one or the other. Why couldn't RNG just have all? No.
Oh yeah, there we go right now, man.
No one wants to that fucking team anymore. Like just fucking stay down there, you motherfucker.
Stay down.
We just don't want to see them anymore. But then, I just want Nami to retire. Like, come on, dude. Like, right off right off into the sunset. It's like at the end of.
Oh, that's not even a sunset anymore.
It's not even second time. It's like at the end of of Mice and Men. Spoilers, but then they have to
Oh, don't spoil Mice and Men. I mean, I've read it. You know what? Spoil it. No, none of these motherfuckers are gonna read that.
One of the friends has to end another friend's life, and then he's just like, I want to do that to Name. Like it's the end of the career, man. It'll be greener pastures.
It'll be greener pastures.
He should have just retired before Worlds, man.
Yeah.
The opinion of him would be completely different.
I love the fact that you just made Of Mice and Men. I thought I would never hear about that book again.
Grapes of Wrath and Of Mice and Men. Terrible.
Yeah. Emily?
All I was gonna say is I think it's really sad if you haven't watched UP this season and you just look at their scoreline, you're like, oh my gosh, this team must have been terrible. And that doesn't tell the entire story, because I honestly think that Hart on this team was way better than anything he showed on Samsung Blue. Like, he really stepped up. If anyone was controlling the pace of the game, it was him. He was doing all these crazy deep invades to try to get vision down. If you remember in week 4, I was just looking it up to try to remember which week it was. But week 4, they came up with that really amazing plan to keep track of Clearlove in the jungle, with Hart invading as Annie, and then they put Punished on TF, so wherever Clearlove was on Evelyn, they would just be on top of him instantly. Yeah. And the first game when they won, everyone was like, oh yeah, it's because, and I'm sure Hughbo is gonna yell at me for this, but it's because they played fucking Amazing J in the top lane and they didn't play their actual roster. But the second game, UP actually beat EDG with their regular roster, just because they came up with an incredibly smart game plan. And I think Hart was a huge part of that. He's just such a fantastic veteran support player that I feel is really coming into his own. And it was honestly a pleasure to watch him, even though his team wasn't the greatest. Mm-hmm. So I hope that he does find another team. I know a lot of teams in general are really hesitant to pick up older players a lot of the times, especially in China. So I do hope that he gets another chance on an LPL team, or if he goes back to Korea, he gets another chance on an OGN team. So I honestly think that he's learned a lot. He's significantly improved his map play, and his knowledge of just vision control and warding and applying pressure has just been super impressive all split.
Yep. All right, Hughbo. To read us off, talk about Xiaogu, the QG.
When I stopped, before I stopped writing last year, I wrote in. God,
is that cicada?
Yeah.
Oh my god. It's like an anime. It's like an anime.
I know, it really is.
Yeah. You think I should close the window right now? Or it's because it's 3 a.m. in Korea, so...
I think it adds to the charm.
It adds to the charm, leave it
on. Alright, so... Damn. Anyways, so... Before I stopped writing, I wrote an article called, a love letter to the KT Arrows, okay? And this is the time when Kakao was on the team, and then this is, it didn't look. Sometimes it didn't look like the fuck they. Sometimes it didn't look like they knew what the fuck they were doing. But then other times it just looked all perfect and all beautiful. And this was right before I wrote the article. Right before the finals against Samsung Blue, right? Finals against Samsung Blue, where they miraculously pulled off the 3-game comeback. So back then, I kind of said, these guys team fight correctly. I think they understand the meta to a certain extent, They don't know the game well, but they understand the meta well, and I think there's a significant difference. And that these guys are personable, and then they have kind of all the right tools and all the right players, and and players who can carry from each role. I think QG for me really kind of inherits that spirit, and is my pick for if there's a Chinese team that's going to go to Worlds, I'm really going to fall in love with. I think it's going to be Xiaogu, because first of all, what I want to say is QG has 3 legitimate superstars and then 2 legitimate role players. Okay, they have TNT, legitimate grade A top 3 AD carry. Yeah. They have V, top 3 top laner, and they have Swift. Now, the thing about Swift, right? It's hard to talk about this guy and exactly gauge how good he is. Monty and I were talking about him once, and then Monty was he made the best impression. He said Swift is like a robot. Like, I am a robot designed to go into enemy jungle with no brain and execute perfect mechanical invades onto enemy camps or something like that. So this guy, but Swift. Anyways, just to get back to it, and then the other players are TCT, formerly known as Moore, who's gotten much better, and I think he's a respectable role player at his position, and Doenby. Now we can talk about Doenby all the fuck we want, but we're never going to be able to really. I'm never really going to be able to understand how good this guy truly is. But the reason why I fell in love with QG so much is because I think that if you're trying to understand the meta right now, or you're trying to understand like the simplest way to think about the meta, and you're like a coach or you're an analyst, and you want to show your team the proper way to play the game, you look at a good QG game. Now, for a few things to understand about what I think the meta is right now. Okay, I think the meta is all about pushing mid lane and clearing waves in order to free up space for your jungler and bot lane and support to go into enemy jungle, right? Because if you push a wave, then you force the enemy mid laner to have to choose between. First of all, you can posture towards enemy jungle, and that's why I think champions like Ahri and TF are going to be really good. But you need to force the enemy to choose between CS at mid lane and then helping the jungler out, right?
Yeah.
So if you'll notice with QG games is that Doenby always plays these fucking champions like mid Morgana, mid Orianna, Cassiopeia. His Azir is kind of ass, but like Zir, like these huge wave clearing champions, and Moore. And I think the beautiful thing about QG is that their support, Moore TCT, he never his greatest games. He never really plays like. He always plays to win lane, and that's interesting because he's not good at laning. More inherently not good at laning. But if you look at the games that Hughbo plays, that Hughbo wins, most often they're Braum, Annie, Lulu support, Thrush sometimes. So there are champions that put like massive pressure on these lanes, right? So I kind of forgot where I was going with this, but when I guess in summary, what I wanted to say was, I really hope that Hughbo makes it. It's likely that they're not. I think they have significant problems against LGD, for example, because even if Hughbo picks winning lanes and then steamrolls that into snowball, LGD can outplay you even with losing lanes, right? And I think they have problems against EDG for the same reasons. But to go into the world spot as the third team to beat teams like Snake or IG. Or Vici Gaming, I think they can really do that and just show the world that specific playstyle because they play the same way every single fucking game. Every single game, it's either TCT and Swift go into enemy jungles to die, or they go into enemy jungle and win game.
And I feel like that's it's hilarious because it's kind of questionable sometimes, like how they play out that concept or how they play out that playstyle. But it's really fucking funny sometimes because you can't, like the enemy mid laner actually just can't do anything. He can't follow because if he follows, he could follow, like he can get picked off by Doenby in transition, like with Morgana, and literally just die 1v1 to Morgana, and that's like actually kind of like the saddest way to die sometimes. Like it's because it's the slow death, but you get caught in transition or you just get killed in the 2v2 because they actually just have a better 2v2 in that sense. And so Doenby, he's not predictable with his champion picks. Like you just can't go an AD mid matchup against him because he'll just like play Scion.
I was gonna say you're talking about someone who's played Maokai in mid because it's a direct counter. Oh, it's a counter to Victor. Okay. But
you just don't know what he's gonna do, and it's just like actually hilarious sometimes. Yeah, Hughbo is a team to watch out for, and I think
I think the Western fans need to watch out for them. They need to catch their games in LPL playoffs. This team is really exciting. When they win, it's cool. When they lose, it's cool. I saw the
there's a highlight
team
thing,
fighting
right?
video from a highlight video that was on Reddit. That was really well done. And I still think that if you're a coach or an analyst, I'm not the best person to take advice from, but I think if you're a coach and you're an analyst and you want to learn how to effectively win games in the simplest way possible, then you have to watch Hughbo.
Yep. Yeah. Team fighting, team coordination, that's literally 101 in team play. That's just like
make your mid play mid Morgana, and then turn around ganks 1v3 into triple kills. Like
You can be Vici Gaming, and you can rotate them out. Like, oh, we understand the map, but when we come together, we really fall apart. That's just shouldn't be the concept there. And so I guess that's a decent episode, everybody. So let's go into shoutouts here. Let's go with Emily first.
I don't think I have any this week. I guess shout out to LOL Esports. I wrote a thing on LPL playoffs. Some of the things are still pertinent. Obviously, we figured out one of the questions about OMG. Are they okay? And the answer is no. Because they didn't end up making it. But, and then I have some stuff coming down the pipeline, so I look forward to that, I guess.
Nice. Okay. Drexen?
So obviously shouts to the panelists and Esports Heaven. Oh, and Hughbo for being able to make this episode, because otherwise it would just be me and these filthy new bloods.
Oh god.
I wouldn't have any OGs to chat with.
Gotta lay down the law, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
Good old China Talk days. God.
Exactly.
Alright, Hughbo.
Shout out to the panelists. Thank you very much for having me. Congratulations. I haven't said this formally yet, but congratulations to Frostgren on your new casting job. Well, not new anymore, but on your casting job in Oceania. Very proud of you, and you can always thank me. You can always thank me later. You haven't thanked me yet for all that I've done for you. But you can always send me cards later. But shout out to Kelsey. I hope my China jacket is my team China jacket from EDG MSI is in the mail, even though I'm paying mad amount of money for it. And
that team China jacket's shit, by the way. I don't even like. I respect your choice at all, but
yeah. Well,
I mean, I guess the dragon, is that the one with the dragon on the back?
Yeah,
dragon on the
back.
Okay, that's actually fine.
Yeah. The shoutouts to Dignitas Europe, I guess Broken Shard, Suncook's Wonderwear, and some other analysts that I may or may not know about. Good job of making LCS and accomplishing the LCS qualifier dream. And shouts to esports, because we move into Overwatch, baby. I'm done with China.
We're going Overwatch. This is the China train over the Overwatch right now.
Yeah.
You guys don't see me because we're actually but you'll see after if you end up wanting to watch the show. I can't watch the show afterwards because I just cringe at myself sometimes. So
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, it's my voice.
I hate watching
Mike, not all of us can look like the celebrity A-list elements, okay? So not all of us are pleasant.
Oh my god. The only thing I cringe at is how much I say like, which I try to make a conscious effort to stop repeatedly. It just never works, ever. I try it.
I'm trying to weave in what's the real?
There has to be there has to be fillers. I always have to weave things in between pauses. There's no way around it. I just can't do it.
I feel like for certain players, I feel like for certain players you have to kind of think more about, for example, for players like Hitong and TBQ, you can't really describe them outright, so you have to use how do I describe them?
You have to really lengthen it out. The real question on Hitong. Anyways, so shoutouts. Diggy you. We made it to LCS. That's always nice. We'll see how that works out. I would like to shout out to Copenhagen Wolves. No, I don't even know.
Well, we should just cut the episode right there.
No. That's just if we're cutting me off at this point, then my Twitter will not be. Yeah, there's a lot I'm gonna be cutting out in the future. We'll see.
What's wrong with you, mother?
I don't know.
Well, you can't rewatch his episodes.
I can't rewatch it.
You've been dealing with this hosting for the past 3 weeks, my goodness.
Oh, Jesus.
3 weeks, dude. Oh
Longer
my
than
god.
that.
Yeah, true.
My bad.
You should have seen how our openers used to be.
Oh, don't even know. Okay, anyways, so yeah, shoutouts to Diggy Uke. Shoutouts to I think that's about it. Actually, I'm literally not doing anything else for that much.
Rez just really likes Denmark. I mean,
love it. So yeah, that's about it. Oh yeah, shoutouts to Hughbo. Thank you, motherfucker. I love you. Love you for coming on the show, for filling the space. And yeah, thanks to the panelists. I think that's it. So everybody, wave us off.
Old school.
All right, old school.
Old school. Really old school.